to be here at Lagos Startup Week 2023. We just take turns and introduce ourselves. Tell us about yourself and your company and what you represent here this evening at Lagos Startup Week.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Itimi. I'm the Director of Marketing at Smile Identity, the leading identity verification and KYC provider for Africa. I'm also the host of Founders Connect, a show on YouTube where I spotlight African founders and senior operators, and it's nice to be here.
Hello everyone, my name is Dimeji Timothy. I'm Business Development Representative for InDrive Nigeria. Thank you, good to be here.
My name is Oluwamuyemi Orimolade. I oversee marketing and communications for Microsoft Africa Development Center. Thank you.
My name is Gbenga Onalaja. I lead marketing for Kora.
My name is Olumide, Aniyikaiye. I'm the head of marketing for Logitech in West Africa.
Okay, so this panel session is basically on positioning your brand for differentiation and growth. It's quite timely, and it's a conversation that each and every one of us will be very much interested in. And one of the learning points that we'll be taking away from objectives of this session is how do we position our brand for differentiation and growth? What should be the value proposition, and how do we stand out amongst other companies and in the industry, basically. So I will just be starting with my very own brother to please basically set the context. How will you define brand positioning, and how is it so important at this crucial time for startups? Many people listening to us right now.
Okay, he's your brother too, right? Okay, so thanks a lot, Ife. So the way I would take this is so many competition, so many noise out there. So you need to stand out. You need to have something that obviously that would make you not just be like every other person there, right? And I'm trying as much as possible to speak in the layman's language. It could just be one single thing, as simple as trust, your credibility, you understand? So you need to have one value that your customers look up to you outside your product. It could be a value add outside your product that you bring to the table that consumers, customers would always look out for you when you show up at any point in time. And for me, that would stand out as one of the numerous conversations that we would have here, as something that, you know, in this time of cluster, that would stand you out from the pack. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I want to go to Olumide right now. Could you please share some strategies that we can use to position our brand for differentiation in this highly competitive space? How do we, what are those strategies that we need to look out for when we really want to look about positioning our brand for differentiation and growth?
All right. Thank you very much. I mean, if you're going to differentiate your brand, it's differentiating your brand. I will just take a cue from what it says. It starts with, you know, a single defining characteristic in the minds of, you know, your consumer or your customer. And how do you do that? I mean, it first starts with, you know, an understanding or a basic understanding of your consumer or the customer, the channel, everything about the consumer, your competitors, your collaborators. So understanding, you know, the 5 C's basically, and, you know, how your consumers interact with the brand. More importantly, in simple terms, it's all about, you know, how do you differentiate yourself from the lot? And in differentiating yourself, it's about understanding what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. What is the point of differentiation between brand A or the other brands and your brand? That point of differentiation between your brand and the other brands is what you basically call your brand value proposition. Now, for every brand, there's always a point of accepted inferiority. So this is where you are lower than all the other brands in the market in terms of, you know, your attributes. So it could be your functional or emotional or experience. So there's a point of accepted inferiority, and you know that on that level you cannot compete. And then there's a point of parity, you know, between yourself and your competition. So that's where in a category, you're basically performing, you know what a category is? A category is basically a set of customer or consumer choices that basically meet a particular need. You know, so in that category, there's a point of parity. So this is like the base. And then there's also the point of differentiation. Now, as a brand, you need to have that basic differentiation between you and your closest competitor. And that, you know, point of differentiation could be anything from your experience to quality to the way you offer your service. So in a service industry, it could be, you know, your customer turnaround time. Like I said, it could be around your credibility. It could be something that, you know, when people think about you, when your customers or consumers think about you, they know that you stand out. And how do you get to that point? It comes with, you know, an experience of looking at your business or at your brand from an outside-in perspective, which means, you know, you're able to look at what are you doing and what are your competitors doing. And you're able to look at, you're gathering data from all of the data sources and you're triangulating those data, you know, to be able to make actionable or to derive actionable insights that you can turn into a differentiator for your brand. And like I said, differentiation has to be just one particular thing. It could also be something as simple as partnership. You know, that leverage that you have with a certain kind of partner will differentiate your brand from the competitors.
Thank you so much, Olumide. I'm just going to Dimeji. Talking about partnerships, I know there's a lot that InDrive is doing right now when it comes to that. Could you please give us, shed more light on that in respect to the growth and expansion strategy as relates to partnerships?
All right, great. Thank you very much. It's straightforward for us, right? And as we say, it's a peer-to-peer system here at InDrive. But with regards to partnership, we run a network growth process, which means we rely on the people in our network, which is you, all right, and ensuring that you get the best from us, all right? So that basically helps us in our growth. So it starts from the point of identifying what do our partners, meaning the riders and the users, need, defining it and refining over time. So that helps us define our product, all right? Then we stay consistent to it. We stay consistent to it to the point where we tweak when needed, and we really do not rush or launch a whole lot at the same time. But once we're able to achieve that feat after enough tweaking, based on what our partners, as I've said, I've defined our partners earlier, which are users, and in two categories, the supply side, which are the drivers, and the demand side, which are the riders. Once we're able to identify their needs, satisfy it year on year, we have been able to establish that growth. That simple, solving the problem, as simple as moving, as simple as it seems, is very complex, right? Solving it on both sides and finding the golden middle, yes, that's what we call it. Golden middle, be it price, be it comfort, be it security, be it access and transparency, as we're able to transform, as I said earlier, be it fairness, all those intangibles, offering it to our users who are partners has secured and ensured our growth.
Thank you so much, Dimeji. We know startups constantly face this challenge of limited resources. I'm going to piece right now, limited resources, and you find out that they try to make sure they come up with marketing budgets, but then it's quite limited. How do you think startups can come up with cost-effective strategies that can be very effective in helping them to, position their brand for differentiation and growth? Basically, cost-effective strategies when it comes to the marketing budgets for startups.
Thank you for the question. I think I would classify it under three things. One, we don't have a budget, but you need a presence, right? Visibility is one of the best ways that you can position your brand. You can have like a really great product, have really great team members. If nobody knows your brand, there's no brand positioning. There's no even need for differentiation because nobody knows you. So the first thing you want to pay attention to is visibility. You don't need to have billboards to be visible. You don't need to have radio ads to be visible. You can have a Twitter account and that's visibility, and it doesn't cost anything. So it's like, oh, how do we current an online presence? There's social media there. There's PR as well. And PR is not paying a tech about or any other platforms to do our news. PR is pitching a story. Who is our founder? What's our product different? What are we doing? What's interesting about us? You can pitch these stories. Not every press would say yes, but some of them would say yes. And that gets you into certain spaces that you would not have been able to opportune to get into. But there's also offline presence. It's an event. So there are a lot of brands here that have booths. But there are also brands here that don't have booths that I have met as I'm walking in and say, hey, I'm a startup founder, this is what I do. And I can name like 10 of them in the last 2 hours I've been here. So even when people are doing events and you say, oh, I can't sponsor, but you can attend, your team members can attend, you have merch that you can spend a few thousands of naira. So that's visibility, right? Online presence, PR, offline presence in places where you know that your target audience will be. There are some people who go to clubs and they meet people and they're talking about it, and that for them is offline presence visibility. I think another thing is content. It's one thing to be in a certain space, it's another thing to be able to give content and actually get people to hear about you and have stuff that sticks for them and stuff that is relatable to them. And so we are thinking about the places that I am in. You want to think about what content am I creating? Do we have a blog? What are we posting on social media? What stories are we pitching to the press? If we're going to an event, do we have a flyer? Do we have a QR code? It's about the content that you put out there. But it's also not about the quantity of the content, but the quality and the consistency of it. One of the things I usually say when I talk about branding is that a brand is built in retrospect. So it's not like we sit down here, we talk about branding, and you take all of our bullet points, and then you have a strong brand positioning. It's that you take all of it, and you do it 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and then people start saying, oh, this is what this brand is known for, and you do that consistently with content. And I think the last part is also the experience of the product and how people experience you and your team. So if, for instance, you're a B2C product, you can have amazing content, amazing PR, show up at every place, and then people download your app, and then the experience is shit. That's even the real brand positioning, right? Like when you say differentiation can be about trust, is like when I actually experience your product or experience your people, what do I leave there with? That's what people actually remember. So, and that doesn't require any cost. It just requires building a solid product, delivering a promise that you would market, and having people in your team that are very conscious about the experience and talk to people with respect and trust. I think those are like three easy things that you can say, I don't need any money, but I can have visibility, I can have content, and the experience that we give people can actually be great.
Interesting. Gbenga, do you want to chime in on that and also talk about marketing channels and techniques that brands can also take cognizance of? Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Ife. Peace has done so much in terms of like just taking all of the big ideas to get visibility and get your brand story out. Now, those are some good basics. Some things that I think are also important starting off is getting very close to your users. And why do I say that? A lot of us brand marketers here, we sometimes look for what the competition is not doing and then trying to do that in order to differentiate. But I personally don't believe in that. I think if your competition is doing something and you think it's working, well, try and do the same, right? If it's working. That's one thing. The second thing, again, is getting really close to your users. That's something that is very important. Being able to not just do what the competition is doing or what they are not doing, but doing what the users actually want you to do, right? And how do you do that? There are so many different ways. So I'm a B2B marketer, so I'll speak from a B2B standpoint, right? One of the easy ways to do it is actually sitting on sales calls. What sort of questions are they asking, right? What are their key business objectives, right? Where do they hear you from? I'm going to say something here. I think if you're a B2B marketer, you should definitely try to do this for yourself. And that is self-reported attribution. And it's a very simple concept. On the website, on your high-intent forms on your website, just put it there, how did you hear about us? And this is what this is going to help you do. It's going to help you do a lot of things, but I'll focus on one of those things. It is going to help you isolate a lot of your marketing activities such that at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year, you are able to strip away everything and say, this is how much marketing actually contributes to the bottom line, right? And what begins to happen is that you are focusing on down funnel metrics that really allow you to think a bit more creatively in terms of how are our activities actually contributing to the bottom line. So you'll notice that I've not talked about like specific channels or techniques, but I believe that by reframing your contribution to the business beyond just marketing towards revenue generating, that can begin to also influence you. But I'll just touch on two key things that you can leverage in terms of strategies. The first thing is leaning into user stories. A lot of the people who want to use your brand are actually asking their peers about you. And if they see stories of people who have already used you, that's a very good technique. We call them testimonials. So, there are just ways that you can leverage in a way that it goes beyond just testimonials. And a channel that is really working for us right now in Kora is just industry emails. Right now, very early in the year, we identify a lot of our leads, quality leads. Where are they coming from? Why we identified those industries, and then we just focus on the publishers in that industry, and then try to be on that.
Interesting. You talked about storytelling, and I just want Mr. Yemi to also talk about that very briefly. Let us know the power of storytelling when it comes to branding for differentiation and growth. What makes storytelling really, really very significant in the startup ecosystem? And is there any particular brand that you've seen that really deploys this strategy towards its operations and differentiation? Could you please give us such insights?
So, thank you, Ife. I think storytelling is the beginning and ending of what we see today as marketing or communications. Gone are those days that brands will literally put features, this, that, 2 batteries, 45 hours, and all that. But when you story tell it, you are literally bringing the humanness into the use of those things that are called features, right? See, I always say this when it comes to storytelling. We don't easily forget those stories that our grandmoms would have told us maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. Why does it still stick? Because there was a beginning, right? It gets to a height of that story that everybody's looking forward to say, okay, what is coming after? Then it comes to an end. That end will definitely be the lessons that you get out of that story. A lot of brands in recent times have tried to deploy that, but the one brand that have seen, I don't know of now, but maybe 2-3 years ago that have done a very good job in terms of storytelling what they have is Airtel. Airtel, right? Whereby they use, I don't know their name. Yes, they storytell. So we look forward to the next series of the Airtel ad. And I think they've done a great job in terms of storytelling their product, the values, and of course, what it delivers to their consumers. Thank you.
Interesting. Dimeji, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah.
And perhaps you can also tell us, just briefly, the story of behind InDrive. Let us know what has been the propelling factor from the beginning till now, and what is driving it towards its future goals and aspirations.
Okay, all right. So I'll start with the other one, the storytelling. I'm a big fan of storytelling because simply it paints the picture. It takes you from someone who is viewing, puts you into the story. You see yourself, you see how it actually solves whatever problem you might have. Or it just doesn't, it's not selling it, it's telling you, yeah, you need me. And it sticks. It doesn't just make you remember, it makes you see that. It takes you through the journey straight up. It lets you see, oh, I'm coming in contact with this product. I'm going to use it this way, and it's going to solve the problem this way. That's the power of storytelling. It just visualizes how that feature or that product definitely solves the problem. Can you take me again on the question you asked?
Then how are you positioning yourself for future goals and aspirations as a brand?
Okay. We have been consistent with our offering. I'll take our story, our brand story, started in 2012 as a brand that was challenging injustice. As I earlier shared, InDrive was conceived because a particular city in Siberia experienced serious cold, and when this happened, prices of transport went up, and some people came together, independent drivers, and say, oh, let's create a platform via chat and give ourselves prices when we're going out, right? And then, voila, InDrive came back. And we've been consistent with this, and this is what we're going with through all our verticals. You would always find this feature of allowing people determine how they would like to do things. Simply people-driven. It's peer-to-peer, even down to our Korea and our intercity, right? This feature of allowing people determine how they would use our product is very evident. Even down to our security measure, which is proactive. I tell most of the people who come to our booth and ask this question, I say, first, security is a collective responsibility. And also, by the time you are reacting to the security issue, it's most likely too late. You probably suffer some collateral damage, right? But if you're, reacting, but if you're proactive, in the sense that like we have a feature which shows you ratings of your driver, not just rating, but feedbacks of the people in your network, that is the people, our partners, which are riders and drivers, the feedback of the driver that is coming to pick you, you get a sense of who is coming to pick you. So it just shows the power of having a very good network and creating the environment, which is what we do at InDrive. So just to round it up, people-driven, letting people decide how they are going to do what they want to do on our platform, but creating the enabling environment for them to do this is our strategy towards our future growth.
Thank you very much. On a very final note, everyone will be taking turns for this final question. In a crowded marketplace, we find out that many brands find it difficult to craft compelling brand stories and also communicate it effectively. So how do you think brands can better craft their stories and tell the story well, communicate it effectively, that it will be well communicated to the target audience that they're trying to reach across different spectrums? So we just take turns, and that will be our final words for this session.
Okay, so let me, you like you're always there. Okay, so let me say this. So there is no one, there are different areas, angles you can look in crafting or strategies or tactics that you can leverage. But one thing that I have in recent times come to identify for startup is embracing the local culture and context. That is one key area that we've not done a good job, right? Put into consideration the local context, how we storytell, put in the environment that we find ourselves to reach our audiences or our customers or consumers, as it were, that we have not done effectively. Most often than not, global brands, what you would hear is top down. This is how we are doing it here. Take, use, that's it. Right? However, not putting the local context. You know, it's always interesting. You get somewhere in the north and you are hearing English arts. I'm like, okay, interesting. It's things that we just do, that we just think it's the norm. But if really we want to connect, engage with our consumers for them to take an action, and you are not speaking to them in the language that they hear, na long term. Thank you.
So can I build on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah. First of all, you are leaving out your idea of local content. I love it. And just to build on that, there's a saying that we had, back in the days when we used to do advertising, which is that culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. And I think it's just very important to focus on your local context. Another thing that is equally important is being so completely aware of what your user needs are. Because if you speak to people in the language they understand, from a cultural standpoint and from a job to be done standpoint, I think you've done 80% of the work.
Thank you.
So I think everyone has said part of the things that I would like to say, but I would also want to talk about specialization. I think it's very, very important. Most times, a lot of companies want to do everything at the same time. So you can't serve all the customers. So not every customer is your customer. So it's important that you specialize. Now, I'll give maybe an experience with Logitech. All right. We're known for something, and that's quality. All right. So a lot of the other companies, take for instance, Microsoft entered and exited the hardware, market because, they were trying to do everything. But we specialized and focused on hardware and quality. And once we created a niche for ourselves in that particular space, we're able to build on top of that. Now, once you start using a Logitech mouse, you probably would not use any other mouse again. And then it's easy because the ecosystem means that you're moving from a Logitech mouse, take for instance, to a Logitech keyboard, and then to a Logitech webcam. And then if you're a gamer, you probably want to use a Logitech keyboard again. So it basically revolves around that ecosystem. So my advice is, if you want to really differentiate yourself, pick one thing. It still comes down to focus. Focus, yes, your storytelling, your product positioning, everything centers around focus. So there has to be one thing that you're so competent at that, everybody else cannot compete with you on. It could be quality, it could be your product design, it could be your storytelling, like the Airtel story. The Airtel at that point used to have these 15 seconds non-skippable ads on YouTube. You can't miss it. And then the brand became, very, very resonant. And then they had all of those. You could relate to all of the stories. So the storytelling, MTN started it, but Airtel became better at it. So the point here is you just have to focus on one particular attribute as a brand, and then you have to exploit it to the extent that it becomes your cash cow. And every other thing then revolves around that.
Thank you.
I feel like they've said everything, like localization. We can just go home, focusing on users, also just like focusing on what is the promise that you want to deliver. I think the only extra thing I'll add is don't forget data just because you're telling stories. We're marketing people, and when you're founder as well, you're focusing on the bottom line, focusing on using the economics. Tell the great stories, do the great ads, do all the localization, but track every single thing, right? You can track stories as much as you can track anything else. And when you start tracking from day one, what that allows you to do is that you find what is working, what user specific needs is working, or what's the value proposition that we say. Because you can say the same thing in multiple different ways. If you don't track, you don't know the one that really sticks. You can find the channel, when you're talking earlier about what channels or what marketing strategies work, you only know that from experimenting and then tracking. And then you say, hey, this is what is working. We systemize it and we go very hard on it. So localize and focus on your users, but make sure you track. And just don't track because, they will say that I don't have Google Analytics. Track because you want to use the data to make decisions and be able to tell better stories afterwards.
Thank you so much. Data is very, very important. Hope is not a strategy. Translocation of ideas that are contextually relevant. These are some of the pointers.
I'd like to add a piece to it. Very interesting. We are very big on data at InDrive, and it's informed our expansion. But I would just like to add something to it, which is why we're actually doing it. This is our first time interacting with users, and it's because to help with our differentiation, I think it starts with, for me, I would say listening, before speaking, right? That's understanding your user. So this for us is actually listening, coming out here. We're very big on digital, which means that we get a lot of data to inform ourselves, but make it integrated, come out here. And this is speaking to startups generally, because we were a startup, right? And this was how we grew, all right? But now we're integrating it, making it better, getting first-hand information, like primary data as it is, getting interaction, getting the pulse and feel. how they actually, if I've gotten good reviews, I've gotten bad reviews, I've gotten, encouraging ones, all right? And that helps us differentiate better. And I mean, as an addition for a startup, maybe doing an experiential for feedbacks, very simple stuff. You don't just do it at your MVP. As you continue, just make it a part of what you do. Every time, try to experiment with different use cases with real people, right? Take it part of your marketing budget. Try to create real-life case scenarios and get the actual feedbacks with users. It goes a long way. That's just the listening, but the tools you do for the listening, it goes a long way in helping you decide what you're going to tell. So cap it up, experientials plus listening, create an integrated one, mash it up with data, helps you with very good differentiation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Powerful insights have been shared this day. Please give them a round of applause. Give them a round of applause. And thank you so much for being a wonderful audience.